.001, 002, 003, 004, 005, 006, and the mayor are all present. I've been watching James Bond. Item number 2 at the Commissioner's request. Discuss any item concern on the regular session agenda of December 17th, 2019.
I'd like to just briefly talk about the they had talked and had some concern about wanting a longer-term lease, and I certainly don't think we want to transfer the property. I think a lease is probably the right route, but with and I understand the concern for wanting a long-term lease for their fundraising purposes, but what I ask that the property reverts to the city of Enid if Benny's Barn loses its 501c3 status, if it dissolves as an entity, that the lease is not assignable, that it can only be used for that limited purpose. And so 50 years is in their capacity as a 501c3 nonprofit for 50 years. However, in the event almost anything happens to their entity which diminishes their mission, in this piece of property that we acquired for kind of a lot, and as well as providing the most opportunities for Benny's Barn to
the one that has those provisions in it.
Carol actually made some changes as late as this afternoon.
Yeah.
I think that's the
Are they
version
in
on the,
here?
Paragraph
on the
9,
table in
yes.
front of you.
Paragraph 9, the first sentence, we had that if they stopped their use, their particular use, that it would terminate. And we, if they go out of existence or they lose their 501c3 status, plus if they change their use. Which is the only difference.
That's not included in that termination portion of that contract. It just concerns me doing a 50-year lease.
I think I'd be a lot more concerned about the 50-year lease if there wasn't all that protection. I mean, it's they only get it for that 50 years in the very, very narrow instance in which they are doing their thing as a nonprofit, continuously, without interruption, maintaining their good status. I mean, it's a lot of boxes for them to check for a long time, and I hope they do. But and if they are, then great. Marks, it reverts to us.
It also provides that if we have something, you know, the lines that, the utility lines that run through there. And that if they're inconvenienced, they're not, you know, the rent has already been adjusted for the inconvenience.
No damage.
Yes.
David, were you asking if we wanted it back for some reason?
Well, and there's a 30-day, either one can terminate the lease in 30 days, right?
Well, only
Well,
if they
that's-
could.
They can cancel for any reason, and
Okay.
just, but it would have to be a breach or one of these other items.
Yeah.
We can't just decide that we want to sell it to a third party.
I mean,
That's the one thing that if all of a sudden this was like a, you know, someone wanted this land and this land only, we wouldn't be able to do it.
I mean, I think the most likely thing that's going to occur, because what is likely to occur is compensation. They just have to come back and talk to us.
Right.
And if we don't like it then they either have the option of continuing as they are now or abandoning it. I think them meeting all the terms of this lease and the city being unhappy is pretty slim. As long as they are doing their thing, we should be really happy to have them out there.
Okay. We still own the property, so
Absolutely.
if they discover gold or oil or whatever,
Yes. The minerals. when
You'd
we
have to have
bought
the
it,
mineral
but-
rights to do that.
okay.
But,
Do we have a clause in there where, I don't worry about finding gold out there, I worry about the city needing that property someday, and
It's not a specific way to I mean, and I'm not sure how we would, if there was one, how we would be able to quantify the current value of a long-term future lease with this thing. We're gonna have to go sit down with Benny's Barn and make a deal,
Negotiate, yeah.
and negotiate with them.
unless it was for the utility that we
Yeah,
purchased
yeah.
it for. And the thought is, their use. So it's,
well, I like Benny's Barn. I want that to work out, and I want to work with them. I just, man, 50 years is a long time. You just don't know what it looks like. I mean, we're kind of up against that right now.
But it helps them with
On the west
fundraising
side.
and
Sell it.
No, I don't need
Well,
it.
and David, that's the same thing at that point. I mean, if there's automatic renewals, then it's whatever the term is of
Yeah.
automatic renewals. I mean, this is, in effect, you know, if we did a 15-year lease with 2 automatic, and this is kind of the same thing here. They only get it if they meet this long list of requirements and don't change. And really, in practice, in the long life of 50 years, where they've got to come back, we all have to sit down and have a talk across the table because they're changing their mission or they're changing what they need to do. This just gives them that, so long as they're doing it, they've got a pretty
No, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, we are receiving the benefit of them doing a really cool thing, and this is a lot of the give up. They agree to all this accountability to us.
Yeah, and they've made some investments in upgrading the property and intend to make more investments. Without having that long-term lease, there's no motive.
A shorter term lease, but I understand that the concern that it's an easier pitch to donors if we could say, hey, listen, as long as we're doing our thing, we've got this for a long time, help us invest.
Okay.
And Ben, were you on
Can-
the council when the Coke put in that new line right through the middle of the property out there? Just let us know when we can, so we can move horses out of their way so they could run their equipment, and they were out there for.
They've been good tenants.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be a month, and it was 5 months.
Yeah.
And then we just asked, hey, just let us know where you're at, and we'll move our stuff.
Yeah.
And the reason, I'll just chip in real, one other thing, the reason for the term is, you know, we started this several months ago. We started and then we talked about purchase, and then we've had several meetings with city staff, and we've talked about leases, and we've talked about purchases. And the reason we keep coming back to the long-term leases, the funding that they want to raise is nobody's gonna donate money to any type of organization to build a building that somebody else is gonna own. And so you can still pitch that whenever you say, our only problem with the shorter term was, well, sure, but what's that look like in 15 years if we put a $300,000 building out there? And so we tried to come up. At the end of the day, it was either a purchase or this long-term lease is the only thing, I think, the consensus that we could come up with to work, and we all wanted to make it work. And so we're good with either of those, and we've been at this for several months, and I think this is kind of where we
More than what we had looked at with the shorter term lease because of what we get in the bargain. That what they are giving up to us in exchange for this longer term lease are than what we talked about with the shorter term lease. And obviously a lot more protection if we just outright sold the thing.
and going to continue to invest in the property like we have.
Yeah.
You know, they've already put a couple $100,000 into the property, and even if they build a facility out there, then you're looking you've got a property that's been improved and then may even have a top-notch facility. So
Yeah.
it's all upside to the city, I think. That's why we would prefer the purchase, because
course you would.
we would want to keep what we put done. So.
Okay, all right. Well, I want that to work out.
Yeah.
And so I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. I had one other question. We were looking at utilities and water and all that. Does the 200 cover the, or do they pay the utilities?
No,
Or is that-
they're
They're
kind of
gonna-
utilities.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
We're not on the hook for it.
Previous question? Okay, yes, go ahead.
In
Sir.
consent items, I just don't know what a street panel replacement is. That's in my ward.
Handle them.
It's part of the city's effort to try and do more on street repair. So as you go around town, you're gonna see a lot of these. This one.
Yeah, what we're
costs more
doing
than
is,
50 grand.
instead of replacing or reconstructing the whole street, we're going and looking for different panels, sections like 12-foot. We're able to improve 3 blocks where it would have cost $300,000 or $500,000. We're doing it for this price right here. So, and it's going to be a long-term thing. So you're probably been noticing all over, like going down Van Buren on those intersections. That's the same thing that we're doing. We're just
So,
And in fact, I've gotten a few people that talk to me, usually when I get called. In this case, I've received a couple of calls that lauded the city for making those repairs to those entries. So, appreciate that.
I'll have another one here in just a second. The number 17 is the lease agreement.
Michael's here.
These, we actually went out and made an RFP and sent out requests to multiple companies. And Yamaha won the bid for this, and they're all electric golf carts. They all have premium paint. They have like dual charging ports. Verge cart and a range cart that are brand new, and we don't have to pay a lease on those two. They're throwing them in as part of the deal.
Okay.
It was the least expensive. Actually, we only had the one Yes, that's enough.
It's replacing, the old ones were about 4 years old, is that right?
Right.
Which is near the end of their battery life. And so
Mayor, you have anything to do with this? You're out there wearing them out, aren't you?
and you know, before the season started.
Sure, okay.
And with the 50, Jerry, usually if they're gonna have a great big tournament, they'll end up leasing other
Right.
carts to come in for a huge tournament. But I don't think it's cost.
Hey, Jerry,
just piqued my interest.
Before you go on, I've got one question about the golf carts also. 142,000 is the overall lease for 48 months, I believe, for that, of which $28,000 of that is interest. Payment if we could,
Aaron can answer that question.
to save that interest. At $28,000 seems like a lot of money to me.
The golf course is a proprietary fund. They operate off of their own revenue money so that they can make an outright purchase. That's possible, but they do not have the funding available to do that themselves.
So they're paying for the carts with the funds that they receive for green fees and.
We do. If you want to transfer them enough to buy them outright, that would be an option.
Well, I mean,
What's our
we
annual?
don't own them at the end of the lease term, right?
No.
No, these are operating.
I mean, but it sounded like what Dave was talking about is just the interest built into the lease term itself. I mean, can we pay?
How it was written as a 48-month monthly payment lease that we were quoting out.
Something else to consider while they're under lease, if there's a problem with the cart, if there's a problem with 10 carts.
No, I understand that, but you could pay for the entire
Yeah,
four-year
they'd
lease.
still be under
at
the lease,
Yeah,
wouldn't they?
still be under
Yes.
the terms of lease.
Bid them out again too. But yes, we could do that if the commission prefers to do that. I know from the golf course, I can speak for Michael, having talked to him about this. We just need new carts by the spring. So if you would like us to pursue that, I believe we can.
Saves $30,000 over 4 years, and it's not nothing.
I'm all for it. To save 30, you know,
Yeah.
sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And then we just reduce the. Rental lease, right? I mean, if we're paying.
I mean, we'd want to recoup those dollars.
We don't want to give it on top of the rest of their budget.
Yeah, and we would
What
have to
do is
just
take it from their
reduce the,
budget.
They don't
reduce
have
the
it in their
transfer.
budget.
And then we would amount that total over the 4-year term by reducing the annual transfer in subsequent years. So on year 1, transfer is $100,000. On year 2, 3, and 4, the transfer would be lessened by what they would have been paying in lease payments.
Yes, if you're saying that the transfer amount that would have to be increased would not be lessened by this. I guess it could be
Wait, but of
lessened by
course-
the lease payment.
Yeah, it would be, that's what I,
Right.
yeah,
Yes,
that's what I said.
yes.
That's what I
Okay,
said.
so
Why
yes,
couldn't
again.
we be the leaseholder then, and them just send?
But that's just, I mean, that's not that hard to figure out what the.
No.
Years worth
Okay,
of
I said it
transfers.
wrong.
The
Why
lender.
can't we carry the note on
Yeah.
it, the city, and the golf course just pay us? It doesn't change one thing, but we.
Well, I don't think we want to like do an actual like booking of a debt between entities and it's just a matter of,
Okay.
we just
Well,
front the
I'm not
money
an
and then.
accountant. I don't know.
Yeah, I just mean
It
for the,
just
for
seems
the
like-
budgeting, that adds like
No, that's a
extra
good point. Yep.
complication. But if we could save
If you
$30,000.
think about this, guys, these people are in
We can ask.
You wouldn't.
No, probably wouldn't, but we can ask.
Well, I mean, well, Rob, but that's not entirely accurate because then they get the time value of the money of the entire lease payment up front, and they can go,
They can invest in
% to 10%, we still get a net gain in terms of what it is we'd be losing. So it's worth to ask the question one way or the
I
other.
mean, it's always cheaper when you pay cash up front.
Yeah.
It is, and so that's a good segue into the only reason the city leases. But the reason we do it is because we, or the funds, can afford it. And also in this case, there's another reason. Typically, the golf carts are worn out after 4 years. Could we limp them along for 5 or 6 or 7? Yes.
Well, I'm not opposed to the
We've done that
lease.
before. So
I mean, go find
have to-
if we can save 30 grand.
We would move swiftly, right, Scott? So we would need to figure out, we'd probably need to rebid it.
Rebid. Mhm.
And then figure out.
We only got one person bidding in the first place, so hopefully it won't take too long.
It's a
We
sole
sent it out
bid
to 3 or
process.
4, but
Yep.
1 bid,
Yeah.
yes. So. Well, why don't we do that? What I hear you saying is maybe you want to table this, and you want
Yeah.
us to look into that, and then bring you back
Seems
information?
reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aaron, is there an expiration date on pulling the trigger on this that you were aware of? Alright. We'll bring you some numbers.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, item 10.1, buying, oh, Lou, there you are.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna buy this compactor.
Currently, we have a BOMAG that's got a 6-year lease on it, or excuse me, a 5-year lease on it, and we won't be at the end of that lease until December of next year. We've already met that 10,000 hours. What we're asking for tonight is for us to be able to plan and put it into the budget, and when the end of the lease occurs, we're going to pay the $148,000 ourselves instead of getting it back from Yellow House.
Okay.
Because we're going to, one way or the other, if we go over the 10,000 hours and we use the piece of so we're going to pay that anyway.
Right.
But I need permission from you guys to tell us that it's okay for us to plan on purchasing that at the end of the lease so that I can.
Not enough to cover the cost of a brand-new
No.
trash compactor.
No,
So
it's-
that's why I was asking, what, is it used or what? So
It's-
now you've explained that, that makes sense. Thank
Yeah,
you.
now, like I said, all we're asking for tonight is to give us permission so that at the end of the lease, we'll be able to use that money instead of getting it back. Try to alternate between the BOMAG and the T-Rex, and we're trying to get at least another 2 years, 3 years out of each piece of equipment. That's
They're
what
both-
our.
they're
that's-
both compactors.
They're both compactors. The T-Rex is a compactor that was used prior to the BOMAG. Off of each one of them and utilize both of them.
I'm good.
Thank you.
I've got a question. Paying off 2 different leases, one of them for $170,000, one for $135,000, $188,000.
Trash trucks?
Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, and so we did 3 leases. This was the first set of leases that we did for trash trucks. Again, these are operational leases, so at the fact, once we turn have whatever we made the purchase for the leases up front.
It's the same thing with the BOMAG. We get money back at the end, but we have to pay for it to close out the lease and get a clear title. Once we do that, we'll get the money back. It's after we sell it to Carolina Trash.
So there'll be money coming back off it.
There's 2 in one lease and 1 in the other.
Okay, okay. I had 2 more questions, but Ben got the first one. You got the one on golf cart, so we're all good. Or I'm good.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, let me kick that off. Danny, would you go ahead and go up to the podium? Danny Williams, the city has hired Danny from the firm condemnation issues. We've talked about it for a couple of meetings. We talked, in fact, on the reports we send out, it's got a little bridge team. It shows 17 parcels. Well, tonight there's 6 parcels on the agenda. And so with that, Danny, I'm going to kick it over to you. Thank you for
Thank you,
coming
Gerald.
tonight.
As Gerald stated, Carol contacted me several months ago about the condemnation process for your Carl Lake project and possibly the need as you all were acquiring these properties. I came down with some a couple of days on the condemnation process and what it entails, and then allow you guys to ask questions. So in Title 66, Section 51 through 57, which is actually the railroad statute, but municipalities come under the railroad statute. The procedure to purchase the property through negotiations, they have hired, thank you, they have hired Smith Roberts, I believe, to acquire the property. After the process of trying to acquire the property, and the city determines that they're not going to be able to acquire the property, the next issue is to file. In this instance, we've got Noble County, Garfield County, and Osage County, and so we would be in 3 counties filing or his or her attorney. The court would then give a 10-day notice, and after the 10-day notice, the court would appoint 3 commissioners. These are landowners in those counties, so Garfield County, Noble County, and up with a dollar figure. It's called the Commissioner's Award. And that normally takes 30 to 45 days after the appointment of the commissioners. Once they submit their report, the city would pay that money into the court. The landowner is entitled to withdraw that money. After the commissioner's report is the city or the landowner believes there's an issue with the way the commissioners came up with this amount, they can file an exception. I've been doing this for about 27 years. I've not seen very many of those commissioners' reports. Commissioner's report is filed. If the city does not agree with the commissioner's amount or the landowner, either party has a right to file a demand for jury trial. And at that point, the case will proceed normally as a civil case. There aren't, unless you have engineering. And these are going to be rural counties, so we won't have a lot of witnesses. We would retain the firm. I work with several appraisals, trial appraisals who are toward trial or try to settle the case.
It says there's 3 commissioners appointed. Is it 3 from each? Handled by that commission, and 3 others for the next
Exactly.
county?
So the statute requires that it be 3 landowner interests, so they have to live in Osage, Noble, or Garfield County.
let's say we were to have to take this all the way to court, and the city then was found to be able to condemn that property and take it. Out of that, do we get to recoup our expenses?
So, good question. So, into the court. So for instance, if the city wanted to buy the property for $20,000, but the commissioners came back at 80, then the city's gonna pay the $80,000 into the court. And then you will file your demand for jury trial to recoup those monies back. $1,000 more over that in my example, then they're entitled to their attorney's fees and expert witness fees. So that's an incentive for the city or the state to try to expert witnesses, deposition costs, things of that nature.
What's been your experience whenever these commissioners, or do they have any expertise in?
That's the honest answer is that, yeah, I look at some of these commissioners' award and I wonder what they were thinking when they do it. They will try to get commissioners to come up with the highest number they can in terms of the commissioners' award. For me, that's always better because I'm always looking at the 10%. I don't want to, have an $80,000 property and then the city's got to pay $200,000 in attorney's fees. They have some real estate background. My experience is they're on a list with that judge in that county, and he appoints them, and that's what he's probably going to do in this case, is appoint these 3 commissioners.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to point out this, obviously, we've worked long and hard on all these cases.
Yeah.
All the folks in these 6 parcels are represented, I believe, by the same council.
That is my
resolving it before that
Sure.
presents itself
Sure.
to you, but if it doesn't, we got to get the process started, and that's what
Yeah,
this is.
yeah. I've seen cases always, they go through mediation. You can have settlement discussions, things of that nature. Some They want the entire house to be paid for, and you're talking about a utility. I mean, you're talking about a utility easement that's worth probably 50 cents on the dollar, but they want $3.
I mean, we don't have any rights of way. I mean,
In fact, what the condemnation filing the petition, what it will allow the city to do is move forward with the project. If you hadn't acquired the property, you have no legal right to go on the property, and so
Sure.
at some point in time, the city's going to want to turn some dirt. So we need to get. And he's filed an injunction and didn't pursue it, and we spent a lot of time trying to get that answered. He didn't go to court, didn't get. And he's just like, I don't want you on my property. So.
Now, there can be, I don't think on this project, there can be instances where a,
And that's really what I'm
Yeah.
asking is,
Right, right.
do we have
Yeah.
any concern that we don't meet
No.
that threshold?
no, not on this project.
Gotcha.
And that can be part of the exception is.
Is, hey, you can just go a quarter section over. Why do you have to go across my?
Well, they will argue that, but they
Sorry,
can't
they won't
dictate
succeed
where the
arguing.
city.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
They can't dictate the city. If it's been engineered, then they need that property.
where we could anyway. So we're confident again. We don't see this as trying to be adversarial or confrontational. We're certainly open and we want to work with everybody. But we do know that we got to get the process started to complete this at some point. And we're open to resolving it before. You're going to have communications. So I just want to make that clear because, you know, people have, you know, there's various reasons here. So people sometimes want to know, is it more money, is it something else? It's a variety of things, and we expect that. What he was explaining, that we want to make sure we get the best valuation in that appraisal, which he'll be doing with his experts. We'll do all that. I think we got the right guy, 27 years of experience. So. Well, there's 17 parcels, but I'm not familiar. I'm familiar with these 6. So before we bring any more to you, as part of that bridge team effort between Chris, Carol, and myself, we'll review those before we turn them over to Danny and bring them to you guys.
Yeah.
So I'm not familiar with the other.
Particular 6 properties, and if you don't want to open that or answer this right now during this forum, I'm fine with that, but is it at all, or?
Well, it's really been interesting. We've had an attorney contact the city, and then I've contacted, I tried to have a conversation with him back in July about the property in Osage County. Actually, is what it says. We can go in there for testing purposes. And he left town and actually has refused to communicate since then. And so, you know, what I've told Gerald is you guys have to make a decision on, you know, are you going to get to a critical point where you need to start turning dirt on this project and you don't. It may take a couple of years for me to get the case resolved, but it doesn't stop you from.
We'd be able to go on it and do the work.
Yeah.
Before it was settled.
Oh yeah, that's why you filed the condemnation. Once the commissioner's award is paid into the court, the city acquires that easement. I just don't anticipate that would happen. Okay. So once that commissioner's is paid, once the commissioner award is paid into the court, the cities can go.
Then it's just a question of how much money.
Right. And damages to the remainder.
Yeah.
What is the property taken? What? Saying it's not damaged. They're saying it's damaged hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're saying no damage. So, and those are things that we litigate.
Visiting it.
Well, ours isn't nearly as interesting or as complicated.
It's okay.
It's okay?
It's okay.
Is that okay? And a little caffeine to kind of wake you up and get you going. So you're getting some almond butter toffee from Angel Delight to wake you up. So, Mayor and Commissioners, City staff, thank you so much for this opportunity to come to you, talk about forward. It does all start with a visit. Whatever happens in our community, it starts with a visit. So go ahead and move to the next slide, James. That's really irritating when someone reads the slide that's right in front of you. But essentially, if you build a place where people want to visit, you build where they want to live, that helps Lisa because then businesses want to come here, then people want to move here. is the same thing. It helps whether they're coming in for relocation or business, they're passing through medical, military, they want the same things. And what is our image of the city and what is their perception? So your team, some of you may have seen us around town, some of you may have seen Rob on YouTube, you might have seen us out and about. Jenna's on the Parks Board. We kind of joke in our office that Jenna helps us with a different demographic that Rob and I are out. Different perspectives in your office. So, and I can tell you she's been very busy with Christmas light tour tickets, Nutcracker tickets. I'm telling you what, Errol could probably have sold 3. Go on to the next one. So a quick look back, stroll down memory lane, just because some of you weren't here 9 years ago when we started, or were possibly paying absolutely no. This is when we started in November. That's the copy of the first guide, which we still find around town 9 years later. You'd think they would have gotten rid of those. We did the first travel research study. The Heritage Center opened in 2011. And then, of course, 2012 was the rebrand. It became permanent because it's a fantastic location with a dedicated parking lot. The visibility is excellent. And then, of course, changing the name makes it much easier because Enid Convention, it's a mouthful, nobody can say it. Southeast Tourism Society, and I can tell you probably less than one hand the number of communities that have sent individuals to this training with Southeast Tourism Society. This adventure there for sure. And then we won some Redbud Awards. Then I finished my multi-year training, and that's the highest degree as far as awards or certification that you can get in our industry. And then we had another AKA National Convention, thanks to the City of Enid's amazing. The Arts Conference, one of the largest in the state. It was nearly 400 people that we held here. Of course, the Chisholm Trail anniversary, and then To the Stars, back to back, filmed in Enid. And then back. That may not mean a lot. On the national and international scale, in the film industry, that is huge, huge. And then we belatedly updated the research study. We should have done it before that, but a lot of things were coming online. The Leonardo's renovation. So that is your quick look back to where we are today. And so, and of course, the research study, which why would we care? People, visitors coming to town, what does that generate? This is a typical night, a typical night. So, and what we've done is helped with the sales tax because that's inventory, running at that occupancy roughly. The rooms, average daily rate, about 2 meals per room because our average travel party is 2 people. And then hotels, and then shopping. Now I know that number looks large, but back to rooms every night, 365 days at that occupancy. So that's the revenue that comes in, and then of course on top of that 9.1. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what's going on all around us. And remember, visitors don't have name tags. They don't have blinking, in line at Katie's Pantry, you're surrounded by visitors coming here for various reasons all year long. So, our next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Rob, who's been dealing with
a couple of months ago about what we're doing with sports tourism. Just give you a very quick update. I actually don't have a picture of the soccer tournament, but we just had the Region 2 soccer tournament here in November. They were in Miami and they were looking to get out. In tournaments and then eventually the Junior College World Series, but also they want to bring all of the Region 2 activities here eventually. And that's not going to be ready for a couple of years, but they wanted to get here right away. So they played at Selby Stadium with an agreement with the high school to be able to use that facility. And they were thrilled because they could leave the ballpark or the stadium and go to a Chili's. That was one of the as far as your dining activities and things there. Disc golf is really moving forward. They were 6 holes shy of getting a full 18 out Northwestern. They with Corey, and he is working the numbers right now to be able to get a second location at Meadow Lake Park. We have identified behind that back toward the lake and the outlet there. So that's going to be a really exciting opportunity there. The horseshoe pits at Meadow Lake Park, most in the state, again, thanks to the city for the ADA accessibility, because that's opening them up to a lot more use. Been a tremendous asset at this point. I know they've had a lot of problems with weather, but they're proceeding with that, and as that continues to grow, there's just more and more series. Yay, NOC Enid for winning it all last year, and then Tater Sports, it just helps build quality of life opportunities in Enid. I want to talk a little bit about film also. Marcy mentioned Sundance, and I will be going to Sundance again in January, toward the end of January. We didn't have a film debut in at an Oklahoma film that will debut at Sundance, but we don't want to lose any momentum. We were there back-to-back years. We want to make sure we have a presence again. We have been invited by the Film and Music Office to participate again this year, and we're going to take advantage of that opportunity.
I had a couple of questions. People asked me to talk about the different entities in Enid first and kind of what their different areas are. Municipalities, the only thing I have not worked for, so, but although I've been funded by municipalities. The Chamber of Commerce, of course, is membership-based, focuses local businesses, legislators. Enid is also membership-based, does receive some public funding. It's a very focused area. Historical preservation is very high with the Main Street program. And development using the traveling public. And then the city, of course. Oh, and ERDA is more recruitment, retention, long-term projects, public-private partnership, more of the that used to live here. And then the city of Enid is the infrastructure to make it all happen, including, of course, economic development. So maybe that would help as far as with Visit Enid, we're more I'd rather see a bigger pie instead of everybody fighting or being concerned about the size of the slices. We want more people coming here so that there are more dollars to work with. Because last time I checked, you can't just walk down to City Hall and pay sales tax. It's generated when goods and services are sold. So we want more of those people coming from out of town, finding those along. And our mission, of course, covers the whole city. We are not membership based. The best return on their investment so that they can enjoy this infrastructure and have somebody help pay for it to pick up their trash, fix their streets, their police and fire, and that sort of thing. So the ads, because I think that people don't realize how much they cost. I know I'm looking at Jerry's face right now. It's, yeah. Keep in mind, these are one-time ads, one time. Now, the top one is the state travel guide. It has a 12-month shelf life or more, of course. Oklahoma Today, that's 3 times. That's 3 ads. It's in every other month. One-time ad. The Sports Planning Guide, it's a one-time, okay. Discover Oklahoma television shows. We do a package deal, do 5 ads. I think they're running right now, aren't they, Rob? Guide, which is in every other year. So just to give you all an idea of how much right off the top, and that's a bare minimum of where any city needs to be. It puts you in your state travel guide, your outdoor guide, your dining guide, red carpet country guide. Because those costs are after we get our 10% break from red carpet country. We get a 10% break. Those are costs with the 10% break. And also what helps us with is production of our visitor guide. We get 10% break on the cost of. So I just wanted to help you all understand what these things cost, and you're getting a preview of the state travel guide ad. And I think that those 3 ladies will be available to sign autographs. Fun ad. So where do we go from here? Well, where do we go from here? First of all, I want to say a huge thank you. I want to thank you so much. Able to do so much more, especially with our digital marketing. YouTube. Okay, we've not been able to do any ads on YouTube because the cost of producing videos, it's just cost prohibitive. But we've got our buddies next door, and we have a lot of fun with, clearly, because we've made some. More people will watch it, but I don't like cats, so I'm not going to do a cat video. But look at $250 a month for us to pay our digital. Of the video ad performance and appropriate adjustments, monthly analytics, impressions, views, click-throughs, best practice in the videos, putting them very focused, and $250 a month for their expert services to tell us where to put the ads. Now go back a second. That's roughly $4,800, $5,000 a year for a presence on YouTube.
For advice on where to put $150 a month of advertising?
It's very targeted. No, and then how to do and then how to make the ads. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, she also works with us on other digital medium. So she'll do more than just YouTube, the $250 a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of a,
That's what we're paying for.
okay.
So that 100. Go on back to the next. So wanted to stress to you that's where we're going more toward the digital range. But the slide before shows you the minimum print that Enid will have a presence in, because you need to have that as a minimum footprint. And then we'll layer on. So it's past time actually to do that. So we'll be shifting some dollars in our budget to put the new website up. And then Rob's going to talk for a minute about the economic impact calculator with sports marketing.
Just very briefly on that, the economic impact calculators put out by Destinations. The economic impact calculators put out by Destinations International, that's our tourism organization worldwide, and sports, meetings, festivals, and just today they announced a local and public events economic impact calculator. The sports impact calculator just on its own is going to run $2,300 for our side. To our budget next year to be able to get that, so that when you ask us questions, what is the economic impact of the sports tournament that's going on at the new soccer complex, or the Junior College World Series, or whatever those destinations like New York City and Chicago and LA use to figure out their economic impacts. That's a calculator we will also have access to. It is for the actual event, excuse me, and it'll punch out the numbers that will be accurate for our area.
And then I mentioned the park study because it's 6 years old, and moving forward, part of that discussion, so that as you look at different facilities around town, we don't want to go after a tournament that either doesn't have facilities that are adequate, or it's not something you want. You know, thinking about skateboard park or whatever direction you want to go, sometimes we have to. Direction are we going? Are we all going after the same thing? We certainly don't want to be working over here when you'd really rather have it over here. So we hope that we can move forward so that the residents that the parks are so important to our office. Also for that 5 to 8 p.m. activity pointed out in our study, that we need more evening activities, and the parks are a great place for that. But you guys have done a tremendous job in the parks, and so I just wanted to let you all know that our goal is that Enid, that people know where Enid is. So I want to again respectfully request that everybody that has a business card in Enid, please put a map on it. You can't imagine the number of people that don't know where Enid is. I know, it's hard to believe, but graphic, if you want to use it, you're welcome to. Websites, everyone please consider putting more maps on your websites. We need to visually guide them to where Enid is. But our goal year long. We've got activities all year long. And again, I want to thank the city and all the others that have stepped up over these past few years to give us some great Christmas and holiday activities. We think back a few years ago, guys, we didn't have this. We had one thing, we had Enid Lights Up the Plains. Yay. do throughout the year is get to an 8-month must-visit destination, build up those shoulder times. And I just want to thank everyone because you just proved that we're more effective as a city. I think we've got a good thing going, and we look forward to the future. Be glad to answer any questions.
Marcy, I've got a quick one. On the lights tour you were talking about, I mean, obviously we do because we have to mail them the tickets. Do you have any idea how much of that comes from out of town?
We offer that service to those entities that don't have a front desk. We also to us, but that's really, we work with Chisholm Trail Coalition on the tours, and then a private studio on the Nutcracker. So it's minimal as far as the records that we keep. The Lady at Dance Works would have more of that data. Actually, coming for that.
Yeah, when they order tickets, we usually ask for, their name, their phone number, and potentially an email. So that way, for instance, on the trolley,
So do you produce reporting material in order to be able to find out how appealing those events are to outside communities? To find out to let those people who
we know because like Tombstone Tales sells out a month before it even starts. So those events, yes, we do know how popular they are based on how quickly they'll sell out. And so we get the word out through all the PR, how quickly they sell out. Okay. And the trolley tours.
But we don't necessarily know whether or not it's something that should draw.
Numbers, and yes, we do ask them, and they'll tell us. We ask them where they're from.
Okay.
Marcy, remind me, what do we consider the population of our market area? Is it 100,000 people? Is it 50,000? What?
Well, we can get in the map.
I see.
Right. 3 metro areas, and all of those have sent group tours to us. So it gets into the millions when you look into. Since we just had a group tour from Derby, Kansas here for, the Christmas concert, we can realistically look at Wichita. That is in this area.
That has the surgery center here in town, and he told me that they consider their market area of like 200,000 people, and I found that kind of remarkable. But it's not in mass.
Yes, yes, that's very true. If coming from Woodward, so many Woodward people come here for medical. We are a huge medical hub, and they come or orthodontics. And they're probably not just going to come to that appointment. I don't want to make assumptions for them, but being a parent that you can't do at home. So they're coming here and doing more. So medical tourism is very popular. Or, God forbid they have to come here for some. But yeah.
our research studies back in 2011, the initial study that we did, plus the one that was just completed in 2018, show, based on visitor surveys, those that came in, that we are a drive market within a 2 to 3 hour radius of Enid. So you could just draw a 3-hour circle around. some of those other places that we might be able to try to get some of the expats in.
In May, I was getting groceries at a local place, and a lady I said, do you need some help? She had 2 full carts, piled full. And so I can't go anywhere without saying, so where are you from? Really? She said, yeah, we don't have a name the store. And 5 hours one way she drove here. Her son was graduating from high school, her daughter graduating from college. Okay, well, there's a lot of frozen pizza, I can tell you that. I mean, when you go out, what else is there? Not much.
It depends on what
When you
direction you
go
go.
there, what else is there? Not much.
Sure.
The wrestling tournament that we had this weekend was, where did they come from?
Oh.
5 states,
5 states.
as far as Louisiana. And the organizers there are looking to upgrade that tournament. And
It's here.
yes, dual state will be here Valentine's Day weekend.
Yep. So it's all good news. All right. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay. Kevin, I hope we didn't cut you too short here. Okay? Thanks, Marcy.
Here today. Just want to give a brief update on where we stand at the Stride Bank Center. It's been a while since had a chance to present, so just want to talk a little bit of a recap for FY19. We presented our budget in May. Have not completed that fiscal year. Event Center over at the Stride Bank Center. As you can see, what makes up most of those are meetings and banquets. The busiest side of the 2 facilities is the convention hall side, especially during Christmas time. The 2 facilities. So a very busy year, and here's kind of where the numbers finished. So we had budgeted for 301 events and actually had the 391 events. We had budgeted for a net operating deficit of $480,000 and came in $61,000 better at $419,000, our best fiscal year at the facility ever. List here towards the end, Josh Turner, a really it was a big year for family shows, Paw Patrol, a big event, Harlem Globetrotters, PJ Masks, and our first annual at that time, our first annual Comic-Con, which came back this year for 2nd annual and is already on the books in 2020 for their 3rd. We talk about people traveling from different places to come here. Comic-Con, they came from everywhere, and we had people from Arkansas, Texas, you name it. People travel for Comic-Con events, so really exciting stuff we have going on there. This just takes into consideration our last 7 years, and this is operating. We have since cut that deficit to $400. Continue in the future as we look at the hotel opening up and a chance for more convention business. So we won't see that in FY20, but in FY21 I think we will notice additional convention business because of that. 7 years. ZZ Top in this past November. Really excited to have ZZ Top in the town, which is now in that music genre opened the door a little bit. We have now gotten Chicago, which is years of hosting over 325 events over the facility while reducing the operating deficit every year. The opening or reopening of Convention Hall The naming rights agreement with Stride Bank, an awesome partner for us, and they have been a huge asset to this community and helping us reduce the operating costs by them putting the naming rights on this facility really makes it more or easier for us to operate at a lower operating cost. So they are a great partner. American Kite Flyers all took place, part of it took place in the facilities there. So far in fiscal year 2020, we're only 5 months in. This includes we're budgeted for just around 300 events. We're projecting to do about 373. And as you can see, our budget for this year was 430. I budget and project to be a bit conservative, so these are, I hope, conservative numbers. Obviously, we don't know fully what the next 7 months are going to hold. 2020, we already have 8 concerts on the books. We talked about the sold-out ZZ Top show. Tracy Lawrence, Justin Moore coming up in February, going to be a great crowd. Chicago, going to be an awesome crowd as well. And conventions. So when we started, so we did have a lot of conventions that have booked. As you could see, Red Carpet Country, OGTA, the Oklahoma Government IT Association, that they came back 2 years later. If you think about it, when a lot of these groups do the rotation, 2017 and came back in 2019, they had to skip Tulsa or Oklahoma City to come back to Enid. So that says a lot about the community and a lot about the facilities we have down there and what we're able to do. Emergency Management Conference is coming in March. We have a Jehovah's Witnesses Conference coming in April, and then the Ambucks Regional Conference that hasn't been here facility, or will have the hotel facility next door to us. A lot of what we are currently bidding on and working on are RFPs that require a hotel next to a facility or connected to a facility. We are probably working about 22 to 25 different conventions. And we have already booked for 2022 the State Firefighters Association, which will bring about 400 to 600 people to Enid over almost a 5 to 6 day span. So that's going to be really exciting for us, and it's making it helps me to sleep at night sometimes. Other highlights, sporting events. You know, Marcy had touched on the sporting events, and we see it as a big area of growth for us as well. So some of the stuff that generates a lot of room nights, the Mid-America Youth Basketball Tournament comes in July, a month that's slower for us, and they bring in NOC to do the Chick-fil-A Classic. They host that at our building once a year to bring in 4 teams. Mid-America Nationals Wrestling, as we were just talking about. Teams this year. That's right after Christmas.
They get their space open?
So the Mid-America Nationals will still happen at our space. There's a potential for the basketball class. Girls teams, right now it's 8 and 8, so they're looking to use both facilities, but Enid High basketball will go to their facilities.
And then, I mean, what's been their annual contract with us for the dozen days they get?
Yeah, there's
30
been,
or 40,000 a year?
Yeah. We will continue to keep the tournaments like Skelter Tournament, Downtown Basketball Tournament, the state basketball tournaments will still be with us. I've highlighted a couple down here because while all these other ones have taken place at our facility before, a new one we picked up this year was the OS. And we were able to get that over to Enid. And then the Central Region Baton Twirling Championships are moving to Enid for this year. And they rotate throughout the Midwest. here for this year. So that'll be in June, another slower month for us. So it's a nice business, not just for our facility, but for the entire community and
So
filling some hotel
how many
rooms.
people do you anticipate, how many twirlers come in for that?
I
Are those
think
teams?
maybe a little less than that. Maybe I'd have to get the exact numbers, but they use the entire event center. They use the basketball floor to twirl, and then they'll bring in families as well. So I think we're event for us. We also about a month ago had a chance to have a facilities manager. Open 7 years. We wanted to take a look at what we need to plan for in the future. What are some big projects that may come up? So I put on here what I think is going to be most important in the next few years for us to focus on as far as big projects go. The first is the exterior mortar, caulking, and sealing of the facility. So on Convention Hall, the building's almost 100 years old. Some of the mortar has been touched up, some of the brick. So that's something that needs to be addressed soon, which we've already next fiscal year. New carpets on the second and fourth floor, so we replaced the carpets in the grand ballroom. Looks great. So the next step is to do the second and fourth floor. When the building was redone and reopened, I don't know if anyone ever thought 7 years out of them is good, but we're past due on some of them, so that needs to be changed. Repair and replace exterior doors with a lot of shifting and stuff going. The exterior done, the interior walls will need to be repaired where there's been any damage. Another area we're seeing for concerts and stuff that we've had a lot of growth and areas. So we have some opportunities on the mezzanine area to build not full suites but corporate seating areas, some private areas where we can do additional food service and they can have a little private bar setting in a private area, so we can generate more revenue and provide those opportunities. Another a new marquee and relocating that onto Garriott. Where the marquee is now, it's kind of in a dip in an area that doesn't get a lot of attention. You take that, move it up onto Garriott where you're seeing all the traffic. It's just that much more advertising for the stuff we have going on there. And then the last one is looking at having the west parking lot resurfaced. That is in need of repair. So just some things to kind of keep an eye on as we had to walk through the building. Other than that, a lot of small things for us to look into and work on, but overall 50 facilities, and he was really impressed what we have here and how it's run. So we're really excited for what's to come here. So anyone have any questions?
Alrighty, thanks, Kevin. All right, it's about 6:19. We're going to gather upstairs at 6:30, and we stand adjourned.